Hello, I'm HoJo.
And I'm Hunnsy.
And welcome to this, the 26th. I can barely count that far. 26th episode of HoJo and Hunnsy's Hard Rock Cast, the safe space for old Gumbies just like us, where 2025 is underway and we're going to be bringing more nonsense about metal than you can shake a stick at. How are we doing, Hunnsy?
We're pretty good. I'm going to try and go to more gigs this year.
We talked about it in the last episode, didn't we, that you don't make New Year's resolutions, but you are going to try to go to more gigs.
Yeah, I'm going to go and see Manowar in July.
Brilliant. I love it.
Manowar are playing Brixton Academy in July.
In July? They announce these things so early now, don't they?
Yeah, well, because it'll sell out.
What's that got to do with announcing something early?
Build the hype and get everybody excited.
Yeah, but if you said it's going to sell out, so they could announce it a week before, surely.
I don't know why.
I think this is a new phenomenon, announcing shows months and months out. When we were kids, I don't think you knew that AC/DC were playing until about, a couple of months before maximum?
You'd see it in Sounds magazine. AC/DC announced UK tour and they'll be touring in February. They go, it's January now.
I think this must be a whole new phenomenon. What we should do is we should talk to our old mate Andy Copping, shouldn't we? Legendary promoter. And ask him some sensible questions like, why is it they announce gigs now months and months and months before the band actually turns up to play?
It's a good question. Don't know the answer to. But I'm off to see Manowar in July.
Yeah, the other thing I meant to have a go at you about this is
Whoa, don't dismiss that I'm off to see Manowar in July.
Just started laughing when you said you were going.
They're doing the whole of the Hail to England album.
Would you go in a loincloth?
No.
Oh.
I've said I'll do a live podcast in a loincloth if we get to over 100,000 listeners.
I think it's going to stay well in the underwear drawer, your loincloth. It's almost worth spending money to buy listeners, isn't it, to get to 100,000? Make you do a live performance in a loincloth.
Well, it's not a bad marketing ploy, is it? This whole thing, tell one more person.
Yeah.
If that person told one more person that one of the people on the podcast will dress up in a loincloth, there's a ping.
Never mind. If we were telling people that you would be prepared to do a live show in a loincloth, we'd get hundreds of thousands of listeners immediately.
I reckon so, yeah.
Okay, well, why aren't we doing that as a marketing ploy then?
Because we've just thought of it.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
So at the end of this episode, you've got to go, if you can tell one person that Hunnsy...
I'm going to do it, because I think people have got bored of just telling one of the listeners. So we need to spice it up, don't we? We need to sex up the dossier. Yeah.
Anyway, what are we talking about today?
Well, we're talking about the things that we always talk about, Hunnsy. We've got to go in hard and heavy and say, what have you been listening to this week, old friend?
I've been listening to an album that came out in February 1986. And this album, you remember on previous pods, we hinted at perhaps how Jon Bon Jovi was responsible for...
a filthy filcher of other bands' riffs and ideas.
I've stumbled across another one where once I've dug into the history of the album and the people involved, we might have a case for another one.
Is the finger of suspicion pointing at Jon Bon Jovi yet again?
It is.
Wow.
It is. Like Black and Blue, this is another band where Bruce Fairbairn
produces.
Yeah, and Bob Rock was engineer. 1986. This album came out.
Prime BJ territory.
Yes.
Not what you think. Bon Jovi. That's what BJ means.
Yeah,
Bon Jovi.
Yeah. So around about the time when maybe both bands were in studio recording demos, this is before Slippery When Wet, Bob Rock's work on this record as the engineer piqued Jon Bon Jovi's interest.
Okay, so this is the catalyst to the great Bon Jovi triumvirate of Bob Rock, Bruce Fairbairn and JBJ himself.
Yeah, so this album is 1986. It's the second album by a Canadian band called Honeymoon Suite. The album's called The Big Prize.
You've gone deep into AOR territory again, haven't you?
Yeah.
You love your AOR. This podcast has revealed to me that you're much more of a fan of AOR than I ever had you tagged as.
I've always loved my AOR.
Just was surprised. I suppose it's because anytime I hang out with you, you get drunk and start playing really horrible heavy metal music, not AOR music.
No. What do you describe it? Horrible heavy metal?
Really horrible heavy metal, yeah.
Alcohol tends to bring that out in me. I would agree with you. I do listen to AOR when I haven't been drinking.
Yeah, it's not your go-to music of choice when the whiskey sours have been involved.
No, but this album for me is up there. Dime for Pearls, Night Ranger's Dawn Patrol, Icons Night of the Crime.
You can't say Icons Night of the Crime like that, though.
Why?
You have to say, I can't night the crime. Do you know why?
Why?
Because your friend Dave Shack, who works for Iron Maiden, who used to be the editor of Metal Farces magazine back in the day, used to go on and on and on about Icon's Night of the Crime and being a bluff Yorkshireman with a funny voice. Every time he talks, Icon Night of the Crime. So anytime you mention that album, you have to say, Icon Night of the Crime.
Okay, next time I see him, I will mention. Anyway, Big Prize by Honeymoon Suite. I put it up there as one of the greatest AOR albums.
It's very obscure if you're not Canadian. I don't know if in Canada they troubled the scorers, but Honeymoon Suite went absolutely nowhere then backwards elsewhere.
This album had quite a big single in the US.
What was it called?
Feel It Again. So produced by Bruce Fairbairn, engineered by Bob Rock. It was their second album.
Anybody in the band that we might know?
No, the singer is still in the band.
What's his name?
Johnny D. But this album is back-to-back.
Back-to-back bangers.
Back-to-back bangers. He's a brilliant singer, Johnny D. Wonderful hooks, wonderful choruses. Very different instrumentation on some songs. One song has got a flute on it.
I quite like flutes in rock, though, do you? As a concept.
Yeah, I think the track's called Words in the Wind.
I'm almost weeping instantaneously just at the title.
But there are tracks on there where you go, hang on a minute. That riff sounds a little bit like insert track on Slippery When Wet.
What's the most flagrant one for you?
I'm going to say the opening track, Bad Attitude.
Sounds like a Bon Jovi title, even. Your love's got a bad attitude.
You've got Bob Rock, Bruce Fairbairn, working on Honeymoon Suite.
Presumably recorded in Vancouver, like they all were.
Yes, I believe it was. It was recorded...
Little Mountain.
Yeah, at the Boogie Hotel in Long Island, New York, and the Little Mountain Sound in Vancouver.
Yeah, obviously Little Mountain was Bruce Fairbairn's studio, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What's the cover like?
I love the cover. The band's name came from the fact that Niagara Falls that's where they're from.
Let me guess. It's a place where lots of people go to get married, is it?
Correct.
And therefore, the honeymoon suite is in all the hotels at Niagara Falls.
Yeah, and the cover's a black and white photograph of a newly married couple.
Right.
And you can see Niagara Falls on the Canadian side of the falls. But this album, if you're a fan of that whole Night Ranger Dawn Patrol, Diving for Pearls, Icon Night of the Crime. If you're a fan
Very good.
If you're a fan of those three albums, you will love this record. They are playing. Found some stuff of them on YouTube last year.
Any good?
Yeah, still sound really good.
It does raise the question, doesn't it? Why is it that Bon Jovi goes Enormo Dome and Honeymoon Suite are in the Where Are They Now files? Is it just about who's the best looking frontman? I'm a cynic, I'm afraid. I think life's a beauty contest. So it was just all about the fact that he was a very beautiful man.
Johnny D was, I wouldn't say as good looking as Jon Bon Jovi.
But no slouch.
No slouch. I would argue that he was the only member of Jon Bon Jovi who, you could argue Richie was a little bit pretty, but...
Richie was a good-looking lad. Who was that little fella? Alec John Such.
Alec John Such.
Yeah.
Do you know that brilliant story about him in...
God rest his soul.
Our friend Paul Goon Elliott wrote that book called Starman. Do you remember that book?
I do, yeah. It was the diary of Danny Francis, who used to be Kisses and Bon Jovi's security guy, isn't it?
Michael Francis.
Michael Francis, sorry.
Because Danny Francis was his dad, wasn't he? His dad was Frank Brunos' boxing trainer, wasn't he?
Is that right? I didn't know that. Okay.
If you read the book Starman...
I'm never going to read that book.
Why? Because Paul Elliott wrote it?
Mainly, but also, what do I care about a security man?
Well, it is good.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
There's a really good Alec John Such story about the night that Tyson fought Bruno for the heavyweight championship of the world. There was a couple of days before the fight, and they're watching some panel of experts on the telly talking about the fight, and Alec John Such has got himself onto the panel. Michael was Bon Jovi's fixer, bodyguard, whatever you want to call it, and his dad was training Frank Bruno. Right? Bon Jovi as a band were all batting for Frank Bruno, weren't they?
Team Bruno, even though he's the Englishman against the American.
Yeah, they were Team Bruno. A couple of days before the fight, they're in the hotel. Bon Jovi, the biggest rock band in the world, 1988, 1989.
I don't remember when that fight was, but it's got to be around that time.
Yeah, they're in the hotel somewhere. They turn the telly on, and there's Alec John Such. He's managed to get himself on this panel of experts. I think strong alcohol may have been taken, right?
He's wheedled his way in.
He's wheedled his way onto this panel. Obviously, they're very excited because they've got the bass player from the biggest rock band in the world.
Yeah.
He sat there with a Frank Bruno t-shirt on. So they said to him, what do you think is going to happen? And Alec John Such says, Frank Bruno's going to knock Tyson out in the first round. All these experts just go, right,
okay, you know nothing.
And they're going, well, how do you reckon that?
What's your theory behind this?
And he pulls out a chicken's foot.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
And he goes, if this chicken's foot touches Mike Tyson, he'd be cursed.
Right, this is good.
And they're all going, right, okay, Alec, okay. So they move on. Rockstar clearly on something. So anyway, they go to the fight. 2 days later, the band have got ringside seats, courtesy of Michael. They do the ring walk and they come out. And if you look carefully, there is on YouTube, there's a bit of a kerfuffle.
Oh, brilliant. Is he throwing the chicken foot at him?
Yeah, Alec John Such stands up and throws this chicken foot into the ring to try
Excellent
and
work.
I think he misses.
Because presumably Tyson knocks Frank Bruno's block off, I imagine.
I think Tyson won in the 4th round, I think.
Yeah, so it doesn't work.
Well, it didn't hit him.
Had it hit him, it could have all been so different.
But of course, there's all this furore. The security guards all pile in. They don't give a shit who Alec John Such is. Or whether there's a load of furore and kerfuffle at the moment. And of course, John and Richie and all that all turned round to Michael, who sat next to them going, you need to sort this out. And he went, no, fuck off. This is my dad's biggest night ever. I'm not working tonight.
Quite right.
It's in the book anyway. I'm giving a little plug there for Paul Elliott's Starman book. It is very good. But yeah, going back to your original question, I genuinely don't know why the Fairbairn-Bob Rock connection didn't work.
I know why.
Because Jon Bon Jovi was beautiful? Is that what you said?
No, because Alec John Such had the chicken foot. Obvious now, all is clear. The magic chicken foot. That's why they became huge.
Anyway, Honeymoon Suite, big prize, great album. What you been listening to?
I'm very pleased that I've chosen this album because you can't get too much further away within the realm of rock and roll from my choice to your choice. What I've been listening to is second studio album by a band called Rammstein.
All right, okay.
You know Rammstein, don't you?
I know Rammstein very well.
Everybody knows Rammstein because they're a phenomenon. That word gets bandied around a lot, but I think you have to say that Rammstein are a phenomenon.
Yes.
To have come from East Germany back in the days when the wall was still around to produce music that is only German language and to be, I think the phrase, Hunnsy, is fucking weird and to become absolutely massive is quite a feat of engineering, isn't it?
So you've been listening to Mutter.
I've been listening to Sehnsucht.
Sehnsucht. Which is German for what?
I think it's yearning. Okay. Yes, it does. On the Wikipedia entry, they have English translations of the titles.
Right.
In brackets next to them. So Sehnsucht, they call it desire or longing. Hey, are you impressed by my knowledge of German that I knew that?
Well, you've just looked it up on...
No, I used the word yearning. They used the word desire or longing.
Oh, right, okay.
That was digging deep back into my A-level German.
Oh, well done.
The reason that I've been listening to Sehnsucht is because it contains Rammstein's biggest ever song. Do you know what that is?
It's probably Du hast.
Yeah, it's Du hast. It's a play on words, actually.
Oh.
Because Du hast means you have, but I think Du hast also means you hate.
All right, okay.
I'm pretty sure, maybe our single-digit German listener will correct me if I'm wrong.
I've always loved Rammstein's artwork. Their artwork is just...
The concept of what package, they do. The whole package, the way they look, the way they move on stage, the artwork, the titles they have. It's very well thought through, isn't it?
I do know a little bit about this album. On this album, they did 6 different covers for the album.
That's absolutely right, yeah.
And I think the guy who did the artwork was the same guy who did the Scorpions Blackout album.
Okay.
What was the singer called of Rammstein? Till
Lindemann.
The Till Lindemann cover. He's got barbed wire on his face and he's got like what look like swimming goggles.
Or that look remarkably like Scorpions forks now that you mention it.
Exactly. So the fella who did the Blackout album by the Scorpions, obviously the very famous one with the forks.
Yes. That we always replicate whenever we're drunk.
In a restaurant. Just go to a restaurant, pick up the forks.
Put them in your eyes and open your mouth as wide as you can.
Exactly. And our wives look at each other and go, oh, God.
Not again.
Yeah, I can't remember the guy's name, who the artist was. Maybe you can tell me.
I'm just looking to see if it's on here. Cover design, Dirk Rudolph.
Was he the guy?
That doesn't sound like the fella who did Scorpions, does it?
Maybe
he was just influenced by it.
Oh, right, okay. The guy who did the Scorpions one, I'm going to look at it now.
Okay, you tell me.
Ah, there you go. Gottfried Hellwine.
Hellwine is a very metal name, isn't it?
No, that's my eyesight. It is Hellwine. Hellwine.
Hellwine would have been better, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have been.
Apparently there were 6 different covers for that album, presumably each one featuring a member of the band.
I've seen Rammstein.
I've seen them once, but I think I've probably seen them in the greatest place you could ever see a band. I don't need to see Rammstein anywhere else because I don't think you'll ever beat it. It was at the Colosseum in Nîmes in France.
Oh, the bullfighting ring.
Yeah. Open air, summer, really hot, incredible. And I think also because it was open air, and I don't know about this because I've only ever seen Rammstein once, I think they might have gone way over the top in all the fireworks, all the pyrotechnics, because obviously it was an open air thing, so they could go completely bananas. And they were absolutely fantastic. It's very Teutonic as well, isn't it? The way they do their hard rock. It's very disciplined sounding, isn't it? Very Germanic. You wouldn't necessarily use the word discipline to describe a lot of rock music, would you? But that feels to me like it's disciplined. Incidentally, Gottfried Heinwein, who you said was the fella who did the Scorpions thing, he did the photography, not the design of the Sehnsucht cover. So the photos are his, the album design isn't, but there's the connection. So you were right. Du hast. That is a brilliant song, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a track on this album called Engel as well, which is really
good, Engel.
Which probably is German for something like angel or something.
It is indeed German for angel.
There you go.
There you are. See, you're as good as me. But also, it's quite funny because, to quote a phrase from Alan Partridge, these are sex people, aren't they, Hunnsy?
Oh, yeah. Well, you've seen them live, haven't you?
Yes.
The little skinny keyboard player, they always try and sort of penetrate him with a blow.
Yeah, all kinds of terrible things go on there. But some of the tracks on the Sehnsucht, right? Track 4, Bestrafe mich, which is punish me. And then track 6, Büch dich, which is bend over. And track 7, Spiel mit mir, play with me. It's all wrong, isn't it? You don't want to delve too deep into the lyrical content, do you?
I like that. They're sex people.
Yeah, they're definitely sex people, aren't they? They're very, very entertaining live. There's been a bit of talk that there was some naughty sex stuff going on with Till and various people. I don't think they've been hiding the fact they're sex people. Have you seen some of their videos? Well,
yeah.
They're very X-rated, aren't they?
There's someone I know back in Newcastle. He was doing local crew at an arena venue. He said, I can't fathom how they make any money because they had something like 29 trucks or something.
Yeah, when I saw them at Nîmes in France, which would probably be about 5 years ago, something like that, it just looked like a cast of thousands running the thing. But I'll tell you one of the ways that they make some money back. I have never seen a merchandise store do such business as that night. Really? Honestly, the queues to buy T-shirts and what have you, massive. I don't know how they've done it. The music is not what you would call commercial. It's sung in German. They're sex people. Everything feels like it's stacked against them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You would have expected a group like Rammstein would just be forever playing a small club for about 400 people in a dodgy corner of Berlin where sex people like to go. We're in it for the lifestyle, man, and never would have got any further. But no.
They've got so many songs. You just can't help but bang your head. The riffs are just incredible.
I do like the fact that they embellish it with all that plinky keyboard stuff. That's great, isn't it?
Yeah, that is.
I can hear a dog barking.
I can't turn the dog off.
But Christian Flake Lawrence, isn't he, the keyboard player? He makes it for me.
He's the little skinny fella.
Yeah, he's a little skinny fella who doesn't wear a lot of clothes.
They boil him in a big thing of cold
rum. Yeah. They do all kinds of brilliant stuff to him.
Bless him.
It's workplace bullying. Call
HR
quickly. This has just reminded me, funnily enough, I hadn't thought of this until now. Do you remember we've got a Rammstein story, haven't we?
Have we?
Have you forgotten?
Well, clearly.
What year did Rammstein play Download? It's got to be quite a while ago, like 15 years ago or something like that.
They've done it a few times.
Have they? Okay, right. Yeah, so, do you not remember now?
Well, I remember we cycled there as part of the Heavy Metal Truths charity ride.
I can't remember what year it was, but we ended up poncing a room out of Iron Maiden manager Rod Smallwood. Do you remember?
I do remember that, yeah.
They'd booked a bunch of rooms, hadn't they, Maiden? Were Maiden playing, or was that just that Rod had booked it for the Truants bike ride? I can't remember.
It was 2013. It was the very first Heavy Metal Truants bike ride to download. Maiden were headlining, as were Rammstein. I think Maiden were headlining on the Saturday.
Rammstein headlined the night before, I remember that.
On the Friday night, and they were in the same hotel as us.
Rod very kindly said, oh yeah, we've overbooked the rooms or something, didn't he? We've got a spare room. So you and I got a free room at this posh hotel, didn't we?
We did.
Do you remember what we did on the night we were there? It must have been on the Friday.
I think the weather was just...
And we got back to the hotel and we were having something to eat in the restaurant in the morning.
We were having breakfast.
And Rod came down and we hid under the table. Do you remember? Because we didn't want to talk to him because we went, oh no, we'll just go on about bloody murder. Do you remember that? We literally hid under the table. He looked around, couldn't see anyone there, and went off and went, oh, the coast is clear. And we got back up to have our breakfast. And do you remember who was sitting opposite us?
Rammstein.
Yeah, it was two of the blokes out of Rammstein, wasn't it?
Yeah, I remember.
You wouldn't notice them, would you? Out of their stage set and all the rest of it. Just two very normal-looking blokes quietly eating their breakfast, wasn't it?
Yeah, they weren't in their sex outfits, were they?
They weren't in the sex outfits, and they weren't boarding anybody in a pot. That's our claim to Rammstein fame, Hunnsy. We had breakfast opposite two of them. I'm not sure who they were. I know it was two blokes out of Rammstein.
Yeah, the skinny fella wasn't there, though, was he?
The skinny fella wasn't there, and Till wasn't there, was he?
The skinny fella was probably being boiled in a pot for
breakfast. He was being boiled out back.
Oh, yeah, I do remember now.
So you and I have been in the presence of greatness.
Rammstein, when I used to go running.
Yeah, your knees are fucked now.
Rammstein was always on my running playlist. It's brilliant for any kind of activity.
It's very disciplined, isn't it? It's very rhythmic. So if you're trying to get into like a pacing when you're running or something like that, it's perfect for it, isn't it? You're not going to listen to Joe Satriani or Steve Vai, are you, when you're trying to run?
No, definitely.
It's two all over the place. But there's that Germanic rhythms. It helps. Very
different from Honeymoon Suite.
They're not sex people, are they, Hunnsy?
I don't think anything by Rammstein has been stolen by Jon Bon Jovi.
Yeah. One last word on Rammstein. I got sent their compilation of their promo videos. Have you got that?
I haven't, no.
Can't remember what it's called. Wow, that's a watch. Don't watch it with small impressionable people, though.
I've got a huge...
I thought you'd gone full Rammstein then.
No, a friend of mine who works for their record label sent me a box set of all their albums.
Okay. Are they a bit samey? That would be my one concern. I don't know their oeuvre from top to bottom, but I would imagine a couple of Rammstein albums is probably all you need in your collection.
Yeah, they've got a formula.
And they stick to it.
Yeah, but every now and then they'll throw in another song that's got 19 brilliant riffs in it.
And then all is forgiven. Their last one was called Sight.
What does that mean?
Oh, this is an amazing fact now. You know, we were trying to say it's about as far from AOR, Rammstein, as you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
The cover of their last album, Zeit, which came out in April 2022, it's got a cover shot, which is the band at this thing called the Trudelturm in Berlin, which is a 20-metre high former specialist wind tunnel in the Adlershof district of Berlin. But the weird part of this, Hunnsy, is guess who took the cover photo? And it's not your mate who did the Scorpions thing, I can tell you. Cover photo of Rammstein's last album.
I'm not familiar with this album. Has it got a picture of the band on it?
It's got the picture of the band. They're walking down the steps around this tower.
Who took the photograph?
Bear in mind, we've been saying they're about as far removed from the world of AOR as you could possibly imagine.
The only guy I can think of who is in the world of AOR and is also renowned for being a photographer is Bryan Adams.
You've got it.
Really?
Bryan Adams took the cover photograph of the last Rammstein album.
Wow.
Isn't that weird? So there you go. I think both you and I need to go and have a listen to that now. Our interest has been piqued by the fact that well-known sex person Bryan Adams has taken the shot.
He is a brilliant photographer, Bryan Adams.
So on that bombshell, Hunnsy, all that remains to be said is if you could just tell one person that Hunnsy will do a live performance in a loincloth once we reach 100,000 listeners, then that would be a spur to get our number base up overnight.
I might even put oil.
You might oil yourself up. You're auditioning for Rammstein here. On that bombshell, mate, I'm going to leave you to it. Go and prepare your baby on. All right, buddy. I'll see you here, same time, same place next week.
See you next week. See you, mate.
See
Bye.
you. Bye. Bye.